Hey, welcome back to the channel. All right, it is time for the updated tier list, Battlegrounds only. This is for Battlegrounds. As we head into season 9, right? The Battleground seasons are getting intense. The rewards are being increased. Bam's talking about a big tournament, that sort of thing. And I do think the mode is maturing. We've seen a lot of bans and things like that coming along with it. I did face some modders myself. But in this one, this last season being season 8, I chose to really try to push through. I got into Gladiator Circuit early. I made it all the way up to Celestial 6. And then the meta changed and I fell hard. My deck, my roster wasn't as ranked up for a more nuke roster. And also my skills weren't there, both in drafting and the strategy of it all, and then the actual playing. Now, fortunately, I stuck with it. I made some adjustments to my deck and I got all the way up to Mysterium 2. I'm going to be opening up my wards tomorrow. That's how you can tell when I'm filming this. But that process really got me thinking about how can I improve this spreadsheet and make the information I'm trying to get out, that we're trying to get out, even better and make more sense. I've talked to the MCoC Illuminati and we're going to totally give the tier list a big update, some new emojis, and then we completely got rid of one of the sections of dual threats. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this as you can use this. Now, remember, this is all for default rankings, right? Each Battlegrounds season is going to have its own metas and you've got to adjust to it. That's a large part of Battlegrounds. You can win your matchup or at least give yourself a significant advantage just even by who you ban off your opponent or who you've put into your deck and what strong points you are making in your deck. Let's go ahead and get to this finally. I will cover the legend as we talk about the champions and they have them. I'm not going to talk about every single champion, but I will try to quickly highlight some of the changes and updates. And then as always, I'm going to put a spreadsheet or a screenshot size spreadsheet version of this. Misty K has been helping me out with that, so it'll probably take a couple of weeks, but I will get this up on my Twitter feed. And then if you could do me a huge favor, go support the MCoC Illuminati. This spreadsheet is linked in the description, but you could also just search for those channels in YouTube. These are channels I watch and have been watching for a very long time to be entertained and get significantly better at this game. And if you recognize those names and you take a look, you're going to see a lot of them throughout Celestial and the very high tiers. All right, so we'll go ahead and go with Mystic. Now, I still like to start with dual threat. And when I was doing very well and made it up to Celestial, one of the first things I was doing is I was prioritizing my first couple of drafts as a dual threat. Right? This is a general thing. This was something I was doing. And I did that because then it didn't matter as much what my opponent drafted because I was still prepared. If I needed to use those champions offensively, cool. If I needed to use them defensively, cool. But I found that if I drafted, let's say, Domino, although you see her up there and we'll go over that there, but let's say Attuma, and then they drafted 2 or 3 great counters. There's not a lot of great counters to Attuma. This example is not good, but you get my point. Let's go with Korg. And I drafted Korg, and then they drafted Omega Red. I had problems. I couldn't use Korg offensively, so I changed that. It's like, it doesn't matter how good this defender is. I'm going to start picking my dual threats. And so that's what's up here. And I just completely got rid of the second tier of dual threats because I wanted to show that's how good they need to be. Now you're going to see the various emojis and I want to point these out in a couple of places. The first one here as we're doing Mystic was America Chavez. She's got that crystal ball and you can see that it's early. So be careful on this prediction. I do think that's where she's going to end up though. I've had a lot of experience with it. I talked to you about her when she was just even buffed. I was like, she's going to be a Battlegrounds monster. She got buffed and I used my 6-star with great effect in Battlegrounds. It's just that I've been playing with my 7-star rank too. And so that's what those 7s are. If you look at it pretty closely, it's like a slot machine 777. And I do want to get this out and make it clear because there's going to be some other champions you're going to see that emoji on, where it's the 7-star is currently enhancing the effectiveness. I'll have another video coming out later this week that's going to be about kind of 7 stars versus 6 stars to give a rank up advice. But what I'll just quickly say here is when you see that emoji is, I think there's 7-star champions that because they're 7 stars are kind of punching above where I think they will when the meta is filled with 7 stars. That's probably going to take a while, so they're going to remain strong. But as a phenomenal example of that, we'll move into Mutant, is Domino. I think eventually Domino's going to actually move into the defender category. She's a phenomenal defender. I think she'll be a tier above all defender. And she's going to have the little fencing person emoji, meaning there's offensive potential uses too, right? A lot of us use our 6-star rank 4 dominoes to get like a Nick Fury or something if we draft her, and then our opponent always gets Nimrod. Why is that? If you draft Nimrod, your opponent always gets, or if you draft Domino, your opponent always gets Nimrod. Ruined my own joke, but I think you know what I'm talking about there. But right now, folks who have a 7-star Domino, especially if you have a rank 2 like Yusafa or some others that I encountered in my my Battlegrounds Season 8 here, you know how powerful she can be, and she can be very offensively used. Going into the science class there, we've got Scorpion. He is amazing, and this is a great time for us to explain the little video game mantra that I have there, right? You know, in my monthly tier list, that's the Go Ask Suida. Well, in this one, it means this is going to require almost even extra strategy and knowledge. It's going to enhance the effectiveness of this, right? And what I mean by that is, and you can just see this is on Mojo, Scorpion, Fury, Toad, and Cersei, is that in all of these champions, there's someone that if you draft them early, you probably have an idea on how you want to use them. Mojo, you probably want to use them defensively. Scorpion, you probably use them offensively. Fury, defensive. Toad, I think probably defensive, but I'm not a fan of Toad, and this is at the suggestion of DLL, Bitter Steel, TJ, and others. And then Cersei, definitely at Bitter Steel suggestions, he has a rank 5. And what they're saying is yes, the champion is probably stronger in one side, but if I draft them early, often what happens is my opponent drafts a counter. So let's say you draft Fury early as a defender, and then your opponent picks up, let's say, Penny Parker or Danny Moonstar. Fury is good enough where your opponent, and they're thinking you're probably using defensively, you can now probably use Fury offensively, switch it up on your opponent. And this is where draft strategy and all of that comes into play. I want to point that out. That's why that designation is next to these champions. And then the last one I do want to point out here is Lady Deathstrike. Now, this is at the suggestion of Bitter Steel. Phenomenally player. Check out how high he finished in Battlegrounds this season. And a lot of the other smart players like TJ, Nam, they're all smart, agreed with him. And so that's why we did it. She's not even fully in the game yet, but she does appear as though she's going to be strong enough offensively and be someone who's going to cause you real problems on defense if you don't have a dedicated counter. It's early though, so keep an eye out on this one, okay? Don't go ranking her just purely based off this spreadsheet, but this is a prediction and something we're going to monitor over the next 2 or 3 months. Okay, another big change that was made is, you know, the attackers and the defenders are vitally important to doing well in Battlegrounds. Having them separated out. That's one of the reasons why we went down to just one tier of dual threats, just to show how rare and unique they are. And then you want to fill out your roster and your deck with attackers and defenders. And in doing that, though, we've then created 3 tiers of attackers to show. Now, these tier above all attackers and then what will be the tier above all defenders is like, it almost doesn't matter the meta. Like, let's go with 9 out of 10 times, they're going to be phenomenal at it, and you want them in your deck. The ones we'll point out here are Cassie Lang, OG Hulk, Overseer, all those cross swords. That emoji signifies they can also be used defensively, right? Cassie's got that evade, and I think it's her SP1, applies that debuff where you need to increase your combo. OG Hulk, he's applying so many debuffs and respect into the Inequity Mastery, which you should be if you're trying to do high tier Battlegrounds. He could really stall, and then if he's awakened, he can go unstoppable, which is a real problem. Overseer, as we know, he's got the auto block and all of that, so he obviously has some defensive uses. Kate, I think a little bit this is being new, but the way she has her riposte ability, right? It's like Elsa Bloodstone's evade mechanic, I do think has some defensive capabilities there. Kitty, you know, Shuri, Guardian, Penny, and Hyperion as we go on down. Shuri, I have the 7-star designation with Shuri and OG Hulk. I think they're honestly, though, probably just fine as 6 stars as long as you have them ranked appropriately. It's just that I'm personally using a 7-star rank to Shuri. I will get a video out on her in Battlegrounds in particular. She is phenomenal. And it may already be out. Let's make sure you keep an eye out for that. And then OG Hulk, I think we know what he can do. Day 1 of his buff, I was all over this guy. And then you've got the bomb emoji there next to Omega Red, meaning to be that level of attacker, I think you do want to be running the recoil tree. That's part of what's increasing or decreasing his ramp, letting you get that massive damage out early. And then we have the broken heart emoji, and you'll see that elsewhere in here. I think Thing is one of the ones we have it on. Is, you know, especially with Penny, you're like, wait, she's an attacker? She is. remember, she's got dual immunities, and then she's got the heal block. She's very tanky, which is going to be even more important with the rule scoring changes and emphasizing having more life. And then she can do massive, massive damage relatively quickly. Just make sure you're not going against Incinerate immune, and you'll be pretty good. I use her for Nick Furies. I use her for Immortal Abominations and more, just because of how much damage she can pump out in a relatively quick period of time, and then be healthy, come out with a really nice high health pool. But she's got the emoji because it's not her fault. She was such a good defender that everyone makes sure they have multiple Penny Parker counters in. And you know what? On my streak back up to Mysterium, because I fell pretty far down from Celestial, on my streak back up, I actually used her defensively a couple of times because I had drafted her as an offensive weapon, and I had fully intended to use her that way. But when we got to the end of the draft, I realized my opponent just didn't have a counter. It wasn't their fault. One just never came up, and then I was able to place her, and she won me the match. All right, the next two tiers of attackers, we've got the top shelf and the super premium. Just some ones I want to point out really quickly. Symbiote Supreme, with the changes in the scoring, I do think he may be up here. Let's keep an eye on that, though. That's one where the scoring change might not be as significant, and so maybe he just will be too slow. Wiccan could be phenomenal, right? I switched a Wiccan into my deck here this last week of Gladiator Circuit because I was struggling with Hulklings, and I just wanted to have as many possible answers to Hulkling as possible. He came in and really handled a lot for me there. Joe Fixit, Mr. Fantastic. I will get a video on Mr. Fantastic probably after this video comes out too. He was fast enough where I was using him in before the scoring changes. You want to make sure you place him right, and then he definitely does have the defensive capabilities too. If they don't have an attacker who can shrug his debuffs, it can get really frustrating and really ugly, and he gets quite tanky. Moving into the skill has so many attackers. It makes sense how it fits with the class. The one I want to point out is Moondragon. Now, Nagase has been putting out some very eye-popping videos of Moondragon. And the reason we don't have her up a little bit higher is, one, I want to see it a bit more. Nagase is an extremely skilled player, and all of those champions in those tiers can pull off incredible results. I mean, look, we've got Namor, Joe Fixit, iBomb. They can pull off incredible things. This is more if you don't have those other options at the top shelf, or let's say there's just less metas or less defenders that they're going to be phenomenal for. Part of my kind of quote unquote concern with Moondragon, on top of being new, is that she does appear to want to be doing a lot of intercepts. Those can go wrong. They can create mistakes, and then that will create health loss, which will of course decrease your potential score. Mantis, let's see that buff. She's also someone who could go up higher. And Baron Zemo is another one I want to kind of keep an eye on him, because the biggest negative on him is he could potentially be a little slow outside of those really ideal matchups for him. But again, with the scoring changes, maybe that's not a problem at all, and he obviously can be used defensively. I do want to touch quickly on Mutant here. Namor, with the presence of Attuma. Attuma is a tough defender who you definitely want to have options for. And now with the health remaining, taking a larger portion, or getting a slightly larger portion of the total score over time, getting your SP3 with Namor doesn't seem so bad anymore. It could also be very good for Korg. And I want to see, for people who have highly ranked Namors, if he's doing enough damage, because I think he might be, for those matches that are even outside of the damage back sort of thing that we're looking at. Professor S is another champion where I want to see, is he now going to be fast enough? Remember, some of his attacks don't make contact and things like that. And the biggest issue with him is that he just took a little bit longer. He can handle miss and evade for you. He's a phenomenal champion. Gambit, that's with the relic, and I wish I could get official word on if the relic is bugged or not, or intended or not. Right now, Gambit with the relic can do significant damage. I think a lot of that's 7-star as well too, so keep that in mind. And then we move on to the other side, Gore and Gamora. The other ones I want to point out, I think the 7-star might be increasing their effectiveness quite a bit, particularly Gamora. She can do a lot of damage. I've used her in seasons past, but we're going back like probably 4 or 5 seasons, so it's a while, and I do think the game as the mode has progressed a little bit, so I want to keep an eye on that. And yeah, so that's it. And then we move to the super premium. These are like more, I think it's going to take a very specific meta, or you just not having options above them for you to place them in their deck. They obviously can't do things like Black Widow Deadly Origins in the first couple of seasons was in a lot of decks and doing tremendous damage. The Venom Pool and Venom and Venom Pool were being used to take out Penny Parkers and things like that. These are good champions, well made. They're just not as good as the ones above them. All right, let's talk about defenders, who are just as important as your attackers and your dual threats. All right, the defenders, the tier above all, is a similar definition of like, it almost doesn't matter the meta. They're just always going to be worthy of placing in your deck. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is that are we going to be looking more and more for champions who are actually causing some damage, not just stalling? Typically, those go hand in hand. But, you know, a champion like Mephisto who's doing that damage back, also a stall. A lot of them are going to kind of fit in this category, and I think you understand the difference. Sasquatch and Dragonman are available as 7 stars. I was facing like unduped rank 1 versions, and they just have more health and more effective health because of their 7-star stats and the CR and the way that all works. You can also see the fencing emoji signifying they also do have offensive use. Thing has that broken heart. It's not his fault. So many decks tend to have good Thing counters in him because he is so powerful. I know I got caught a few times without a good counter, and my opponent placed him, and of course I struggled against Thing. Jessica Jones actually does have some offensive capabilities too, and that's why she's got the little monster, showing you could force your opponent to bring in a very specific counter, and then if you use her offensively, they're kind of potentially wasted a whole thing there, although the champions that you bring in to fight Jessica Jones typically can be used elsewhere as well, so keep an eye on that. Just something to point out. Attuma is the new hotness with defenders. He is he's a beast. He's a force. You want to make sure you have your options to fight him. Nagase has done a really good video on that, and I'm sure this upcoming Battleground season and in this last one, but you know, he was just buffed. You're going to see a lot of streams and people talking about and showing ways to attack and fight him. Core Killmonger also has that bomb emoji. This is, again, just if you're running recoil. But the thing is, with this new scoring change, I wonder how effective recoil decks will be. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Nick136's channel. He often does run recoil and is a phenomenal Battlegrounds player. I want to see how he does and kind of get his take on all of that before we really try to make any firm conclusions. Havoc obviously could be used offensively. Iceman 2, these were both champions that came up as potential dual threat champions. So we're going to kind of keep an eye on them specifically going into the season for potential. It wouldn't be a promotion because it'd still be tier above all, but being put in that dual threat category of those champions, you can pick early and then know if you don't use them for the way you thought you were going to and use them the other way. Like if you thought you were using them defensively, you can use them offensively based on what your opponent drafts, and you can really force your opponent into some corners there. Mysterio has been a stall for quite a while now, the 6 stars. Just not many people had him ranked up, but now that the 7 stars there and you just level him up, you have him basically at a 4.5 rank. He's very good. I also wonder, especially again, because of the scoring change, is getting to his SP3 not going to be that big of a deal now. He's got the heal block along the way, and then you can really land some massive, massive poison damage. Terax, you know, Terax got Nimroded. He got Carl. DLL apparently hated Terax and created Carl. That being said, without Carl, Terax is still a great, great defender, so he still has a lot of value. Remember, Wizarding Man's only one champion, and you can, again, create your deck, your draft a certain way, and if you don't get to place Terax on defense, you can use him offensively. He does have uses. He's not bad, and it can be an in-pinch Penny Parker counter as well. And then just the top shelf, I do think there's a big drop-off. I think your really strong defenders, the drop between the tier above all and the top shelf is significantly larger than it is with the attackers. I think there's just not going to be a ton of metas where these top shelf defenders just become phenomenal. I think it's going to be more about just the way you're building your deck and like just the best you had. You know, Apocalypse can be a great stall. Cap Sam Wilson, if he catches people with his SP2, can really do a lot of damage. I want to keep my eye on Dark Hawk, Iron Man, Infinity War as a 7-star. I think so many players who've been playing as long as I have, you got drilled into us how to fight him. But there's probably a lot of people who've come along last, I think it's been like 4 years now, might not be as familiar with him and on how to fight him. So these defenders can be a problem, but they're not ones I suggest you rank up for pure default Battlegrounds use. All right, that's the list. That's the big update. We covered the scoring update. We covered Battlegrounds and the whole thing. And let me know what you think, though. For those of you who've been watching this, we started this before the mode even went live. So I think this is like the 9th or 10th update. Let me know. I feel really good about it. I think it's doing a nice job of showing dual threats, attackers and defenders are all incredibly important if you want to have success in Battlegrounds, and kind of helping you with a little bit of that nuance of it's about how you create your deck, then how you do your bans, and then how you do your drafts. And that's all before you even do a single fight. Battlegrounds is a lot of fun. Clearly, Kabam is enjoying the mode or like incentivizing the mode. The rewards for it are phenomenal. Let me know what you thought. If this was helpful to you, if you liked it better or worse than the previous format. And good luck out there. Make sure to support that MCoC Illuminati. And I wish you all the best of luck in Season 9. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.